You lie down. The room is finally quiet. The lights are off. The phone is face down. No one needs you right now. And that is exactly when your mind speeds up. It rewinds old conversations. It replays mistakes from 10, 20, 40 years ago. It invents new problems from things that haven't even happened yet. It asks questions you cannot answer at midnight. It searches for threats in a room that is perfectly safe. All day, you were surrounded by noise, light, and small demands. You moved from one notification, one message, one small task to the next. You answered, you responded, you adjusted, you solved. Now the tasks have stopped, but your mind has not. Why? Why does a brain that claims it wants rest struggle when rest finally arrives? Why does just being here in a quiet room with your own thoughts feel heavier than it used to? Why does silence sometimes feel louder than noise? We often blame ourselves. We think we have lost our focus. We think we have become impatient. We think something in us is deteriorating. But something structural has changed. We are living in a time where we have solved almost every small discomfort, except the discomfort of being human. We have solved hunger faster than ever. We have solved darkness. We have solved waiting. We have solved boredom. And because we have removed so many small frictions from daily life, the few discomforts that remain feel enormous. We removed the small weights that trained us. Now the larger weights feel unbearable. Let's slow this down. For most of human history, and for much of your own life, reality was something you had to stay inside, not endure in a tragic sense. Stay inside. If you were cold, you stayed cold until warmth required effort. If you were bored, you stayed bored until boredom changed shape. If you were in an awkward conversation, you stood there and felt it fully. There was no exit button. There was no parallel world in your pocket. You were simply where you were. This sounds limiting now, but it did something essential to the nervous system. It built tolerance. It built a quiet callus. It built the muscle of staying. When you cannot escape a state instantly, your brain eventually stops fighting it. It stops scanning for alternatives. It stops asking, what else could I be doing right now? It settles, not dramatically. Gradually, boredom softens. Silence stabilizes. Waiting becomes rhythmic instead of urgent. Your brain learned something critical. This is survivable. That lesson, repeated thousands of times, built emotional endurance. Think about evenings decades ago. The day ended when the sun went down. The house grew dark. There might have been a radio, maybe a television channel that eventually signed off. When the input stopped, you stopped. There was no infinite scroll waiting at 11:47 p.m. No algorithm measuring your attention. No endless next episode. Your body powered down because the world powered down with you. You were practiced at doing nothing. You were trained in waiting, waiting for the kettle, waiting for a bus, waiting for a reply that might take days to arrive. Waiting did not feel like a flaw. It was simply part of the structure of reality. And because you practiced staying every day, silence did not feel like a threat. It felt ordinary. Now, consider what changed. We built a world dedicated to the elimination of friction. If a room is too hot, we adjust the thermostat. If it is too dark, we flood it with artificial daylight. If we are hungry, food appears within minutes. If we are bored, stimulation appears within seconds. We solved the problem of waiting. We solved the problem of stillness. But boredom was never a defect. It was training. The moment a second of stillness appears, in an elevator, in a line, during a quiet moment, we escape. We check the news. We refresh. We scroll. We swipe. Tiny exits. Micro departures from reality. We leave the room without standing up. Individually, these escapes feel harmless, but repetition rewires expectation. Your brain has learned that discomfort is optional. It has learned that if reality is dull, slow, or quiet, relief is immediate. And when relief is immediate, tolerance weakens. Not because you are fragile, but because biology follows use. What is not practiced decays. The muscle of staying thins. And when that muscle thins, normal human experiences feel heavier. Grief feels catastrophic. Uncertainty feels paralyzing. Silence feels hostile. The quiet of the night feels like a problem to solve. This is not because you are worse at being human. It is because you are out of training. And here is where it becomes more subtle. When discomfort is always removable, anticipation increases discomfort itself. If you know relief is one swipe away, the moment before relief feels sharper. If you know stimulation is available instantly, stillness feels intolerable. Optional relief amplifies urgency, and urgency is exhausting. This is the hidden shift. We did not become weaker. We built environments where staying became optional, and optional endurance slowly disappears. If this resonates, if you recognize that quiet restlessness at night, that low hum beneath your day, it is not random. It is structural, and it is reversible. But first, we have to understand what constant interruption is doing to the brain itself. There is another reason the night feels difficult. It is not only that you are out of practice staying, it is the sheer speed of the day that came before it. You wake up and your attention is immediately divided. A message arrives before your feet hit the floor. A headline demands reaction. A calendar reminder signals urgency. You do not begin the day in one place. You begin it in fragments. Throughout the day, your mind is rarely singular. You can be physically making coffee while mentally answering an email. You can be sitting with someone you care about while part of you scans for notifications. You can be walking outside while arguing internally with something you read hours ago. You are present, but partially. And partial presence has a cost. Your nervous system was built for long arcs of focus, tracking something over distance, building something with continuity, listening to a story from beginning to end. It was not built for hundreds of rapid context switches. Every time you switch attention, the brain spends energy reorienting. Every interruption creates a small spike of alertness. Over time, those spikes accumulate. You may not feel them consciously, but your baseline shifts upward. You live slightly elevated, slightly alert, slightly scanning, not anxious, not panicked, just never fully down. This is what many people describe as a background hum, a quiet tension beneath everything. When you finally lie down at night, the external input disappears, but the internal elevation does not. You cannot go from high-speed switching to stillness instantly. The brain does not have a brake pedal. It has momentum. The racing mind at night is not a character flaw. It is leftover acceleration. And there is another layer. Dopamine is not just the chemical of pleasure. It is the chemical of anticipation. It rises when something new might happen, when something unpredictable might appear. Digital environments are built on unpredictability. Each refresh carries possibility. Each swipe could reveal something surprising. Over time, your brain adapts to this rhythm. It begins to expect novelty. When novelty drops, the brain does not immediately relax. It increases internal signal instead. It searches for stimulation. And if none is available externally, it generates it internally. Thoughts become louder. Memories become sharper. Future scenarios become vivid. Silence feels like pressure. But the pressure is not danger. It is unmet expectation. When the brain expects stimulation and does not receive it, stillness feels wrong. This is why the quiet room at night can feel heavier than a crowded room during the day. In the crowded room, stimulation matches expectation. In the quiet room, expectation overshoots reality. There is something else that has quietly expanded your attention field. For most of human history, the range of relevant information was local. You worried about your family, your neighbors, your village. Now your nervous system absorbs information from across the planet. Conflict in another country, economic shifts on another continent, opinions from thousands of strangers. The brain does not scale threat proportionally to distance. It reacts to salience. Your ancient hardware still treats the news as if it were happening within walking distance. So you carry fragments of the world inside you all day, and then you lie down. And there is finally space to feel the weight of everything you consumed. This is not weakness, it is overload. Optional presence has become constant exposure, and constant exposure narrows tolerance. The more frequently you interrupt boredom, the less boredom you can endure. The more frequently you escape silence, the less silence you can tolerate. The more frequently you replace discomfort, the more intense, unavoidable discomfort feels. Grief feels catastrophic. Aging feels threatening. Uncertainty feels destabilizing, not because these experiences grew larger, but because the stabilizing muscle grew smaller. You are not broken. You are deconditioned, and deconditioning is reversible. Here is the shift that matters most. When presence is mandatory, the brain adapts to it. When presence is optional, the brain negotiates it. Negotiation is exhausting. Each moment becomes a question. Is this worth my attention? Should I switch? Is there something better? Evaluation replaces immersion. Immersion is restful. Evaluation is draining. When you live in constant evaluation mode, you hover above your own life. Hovering feels busy. but it prevents depth. Depth requires staying long enough for experience to change shape. Boredom, if allowed to mature, turns into reflection. Silence, if allowed to stretch, turns into calm. Waiting, if allowed to continue, turns into rhythm. But interruption freezes everything in its most uncomfortable phase. You leave boredom before it softens. You leave silence before it stabilizes. You leave discomfort before it resolves. And because you leave early, you never experience the second half of those states. You only experience their sharp beginning. That sharp beginning begins to feel like the whole story. This is why night feels harder now. Not because night changed, but because your relationship to staying changed. The solution is not dramatic. It is small acts of continuity, small refusals to leave. When the kettle is boiling, just stand there. Let the mind itch. Let it reach, and do not satisfy it immediately. When you are walking, do not fill every second. Let the steps be enough. When you are in conversation, allow pauses. Resist the reflex to smooth them. These are not lifestyle tips. They are neurological recalibration. You are rebuilding tolerance. You are training the brain to expect less constant novelty. You are lowering baseline alertness. And slowly, the nervous system remembers something it has not forgotten completely. It remembers that stillness is survivable, that silence is not a threat, that waiting is not a flaw. The world will not slow down for you. Screens will grow brighter. Information will multiply. But you do not have to synchronize with that speed. You are allowed to be slow. You are allowed to do one thing at a time. You are allowed to be unreachable. And if you are someone who feels this quiet restlessness and wants to understand it instead of numbing it, then you are not broken. You are paying attention. That matters. If this way of thinking helps you feel steadier, if it helps you sit inside your own mind without fear, then stay here. Subscribe not for stimulation, but for continuity, for conversations that move slowly, for reminders that your nervous system is not defective. It is adapting, and you can guide that adaptation. Tonight, you do not have to fix your mind. You do not have to optimize your sleep. You do not have to solve your entire life before morning. Let the room be quiet. Let the thoughts pass without chasing them. You have kept watch long enough. It is time to rest. Good night.